Morning children, and welcome back to the digital classroom of Vikram Juneja. Today we are going to begin the play The Merchant of Venice, a very famous play written by William Shakespeare. In my today's video, I'm going to cover the introduction to the playwright William Shakespeare, introduction to the play The Merchant of Venice, and the first scene of the first act of The Merchant of Venice. In all, we are going to do 2 acts of The Merchant of Venice for the first semester. So, let's begin. Introduction to William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare was a renowned English poet, playwright and actor born in 1564 in Stratford-upon-Avon. His birthday is most commonly celebrated on 23rd April, which is also believed to be the date he died in 1616. Shakespeare was a prolific writer during the Elizabethan and Jacobean ages of British theatres, sometimes called the English Renaissance or the early modern period. Shakespeare's plays are perhaps his most enduring legacy, but they are not all he wrote. Shakespeare's poems also remain popular to this day. Introduction to The Merchant of Venice. The Merchant of Venice is a 16th century play written by William Shakespeare in which a merchant in Venice named Antonio defaults on a large loan provided by a Jewish moneylender, Shylock. It is believed to have been written between 1596 and 1599. Although classified as a comedy in the first folio and sharing certain aspects with Shakespeare's other romantic comedies, the play is most remembered for its dramatic scenes, and it is best known for Shylock and his famous dialogue, "Hath not a Jew eyes?" speech on humanity. Also notable in Portia's speech about the quality. Now children, before we do the line-by-line explanation of the play, let me introduce you to the main characters of the play. Now this play is set in 2 cities, Venice and Belmont. Venice is a place which is predominantly inhabited by the Christians, and there are Jews as well in that particular city. Then there is a make-believe place called Belmont, which is not a real place, which has been created by William Shakespeare in his writing. Now this place is deliberately created by William Shakespeare. This place is exactly the opposite of Venice. Where you see Venice, it's a male-dominated society. The ladies take a back seat. Unlike Venice, we have Belmont, where ladies are well-read. The ladies get to be the heiress to the properties of their parents, unlike Venice. And the ladies are educated and wise in Belmont. Now the main characters, we have the major character in the play by the name Antonio, who is a rich merchant. He is the merchant of Venice. He is a very noble man, and he is respected far and wide in Venice by all the Romans. And he is a man who is a middle-aged man, and he is not married. Then he has a friend by the name Bethanio. Now Bethanio is a young man. He is a spendthrift. He says that I have actually become a prodigal son for the kind of spendthrift nature I have. But he would not like to come down on any kind of a compromise when it comes to spending. He believes in lavish living. He is the one who is in love with the heiress of Belmont, Portia. Now Portia is the heiress to Belmont. She is a rich heiress to a palace. She has been left with a lot of property by her father, with the condition that she's going to get married according to the lottery of caskets. Then we talk about another lady in Belmont. She is Nerissa. She's the lady in waiting to Portia. She's the advisor. She's a friend of Portia. She's also very well educated and intelligent lady, the lady full of wisdom. You'll be able to get to know through the dialogues when you read The Merchant of Venice. Then if we come back to Venice, Venice has another character who is a villain of the play, Shylock. Shylock is a Jew. You all know that Shylock is a money lender. He's a Jew. He is at loggerheads with Antonio and all the other Christians. Shylock has a daughter by the name Jessica. Unlike Shylock, Jessica is not Jew in blood, though she might be Jew in her biological way of upbringing, but then she is not Jew in blood. She is all Christian, and that's the reason for why she gets married to a Christian ultimately, and she runs away with a Christian by the name Lorenzo, who is another friend of Antonio and Bassanio. And beside Antonio and Bassanio, we have other minor characters in Graciano, Salanio, Salerno. Okay, and Salanio and Salerno are also called at times, if you read the original Merchant of Venice, you'll get to know the Merchant of Venice, that Shakespeare made a mistake. He created 3 characters out of 2 characters. And the third character he created was Celerio. At times he would use Celerio, and the other times he would use Salerno, okay, for the same character. So these are the major characters in this play. We are going to go about doing the first scene of the first act line by line now. So children, we begin with the first scene in the play, The Merchant of Venice. This is the first scene of the first act of The Merchant of Venice. This scene takes place in a public place. Antonio, as I told you, the protagonist of the play, is in a melancholic mood. We do not know the reason basically as to why Antonio is in a melancholic mood. Okay. Let's say what Antonio has to say. Enter Antonio, Salerio, and Salanio. Salerio and Salanio are also the friends of Antonio. They are trying to actually check out as to why Antonio is in a sad mood, and they're trying to pacify Antonio. Antonio says, "In sooth, I know not why I am so sad. It wearies me, you say it wearies you. But how I caught it, found it, or came by it, what stuff it is made of, whereof it is born, I am to learn. And such a want with sadness makes of me that I have much ado to know myself." Basically, Antonio is trying to say that, my dear friends, to tell you the truth, I do not know as to why I'm so sad. I am tired of being sad as such, as you people say that you're tired of looking at me in a sad state. Similarly, I'm also tired of being sad all the time. But where actually I came across this sadness, what stuff it is made of, what are the ingredients of this sadness, where it originated, I'm still to learn the basic. I do not know the reason as to why I'm so sad. And he calls it a want wit sadness, the sadness which requires wisdom, because it doesn't have any reasoning. Something which doesn't have any reasoning is something which is want wit, is something which requires wisdom. So he says, I do not know anything about this sadness. I clearly have a way to go to understand myself. I've got a lot of difficulty. I have much ado to know myself. I have a lot of difficulty to know my own self. To which Salerio replies, your mind is tossing on the ocean. There were your argosies with portly sails, like seigneurs and rich burghers on the flood, or as it were the pageants of the sea, do overpeer the petty traffickers, that courtesy to them do them reverence, as they fly by them with their woven wings. So, Salerio, to start with, he's trying to actually presume. He says, Antonio, probably you are sad because your mind is focused on the ocean. You are a rich merchant. You've got a lot of argosies and the big ships which are sailing in the ocean. And it's very, very obvious for a merchant whose ships are sailing in the ocean to feel worried about his rich, important ships. So he compares the ships of Antonio to the men, the rich burghers of the sea, the rich men, rich men parading on the sea. Now he says that your ships are like those huge ships, or like those important people who look down upon the ordinary people. Okay, so the other boats are the ordinary people, and when your rich ships or the huge ships, they pass by those small boats, they look down upon those boats, and of course when they're sailing along, your ships actually look very, very huge. They look magnificent, and of course they dominate the entire sea. Okay, and it seems like as if these little boats which are passing by your ships, they are bowing before the greatness of your ships. That's basically the thing. So Salanio adds on to that. He says, "Believe me, sir, had I such venture forth, the better part of my affections would be with my hopes abroad. I should still be plucking the grass to know where sits the wind, peering in the maps for ports and piers and roads in every object that might make me fear misfortune to my ventures of out of doubt would make me sad." So Salanio adds on to that presumption in saying that, Antonio, your reason of sadness is very, very genuine. Believe me, if I had such a business venture, if I had such business merchandise abroad, the better part of my affections would have been with those ships abroad. I would have been physically present over here. If I had been in your shoes, I would have been physically present here. I would have been mentally with my ships. My hopes, my ships, my mental energy would have been with my ships. I would be shooting off the grass to use them to check as to what is the direction of the wind. And if there's anything, I would be actually checking the maps for ports and piers, for roads, for harbors. I would be checking as to where my ships have reached. I would be checking as to how long will my ships take before they sail to a safer path or the safer position. And all those little things, be it any danger to my ship, all those little things that might make me fear or worry, of course, would in turn make me very, very sad. That's basically what Salanio has to say, and Salanio is trying to pacify his friend by saying this. Let's move further. As I told you, Antonio is in a sad mood. Salanio and Salario are trying to actually pacify Antonio. Now Salario tries to say, "My wind cooling my broth would blow me to an ague. When I thought what harm a wind too great at sea might do, I should not see the sandy hourglass run, but I should think of shallows and flats, and see my wealthy Andrew docked in sand, wailing her high top lower than her ribs to kiss her burial. Should I go to church and see the holy edifice of stone, and not bethink me straight of dangerous rocks, which touching my gentle vessel's side would scatter all her spices and silk? And in a word, but even now worth this and now worth nothing, shall I have the thought to think on this, and shall I lack the thought that such a thing be chanced would make me sad? But tell me not, Antonio. I know Antonio is sad to think upon his merchandise." So Salario is trying to actually add on to the presumption as to why Antonio is sad by saying, he says, "The wind which blows out of my nostrils has the capability of cooling my soup. The broth is a soup." He says that wind, can actually, because it would make me think of what a strong wind at sea could do to my ships, because that wind which is blowing out of my nostrils has the capability of making me think of the wind which actually blows over the strong sea. It would actually make me shiver down my spine, thinking as to what harm can be done by that wind which blows over the ocean. When I see the sandy hourglass, now sandy hourglass is the earlier way of measuring time. There was a sand in the glass, which would filter down and the sand would filter down in the glass, and ultimately we could gauge the time. So he says, looking at the sandy hourglass would not remind me of the time of what time of the day it is. It would rather take me to the shallows of the sea. It would rather take me towards the sea. The sand in the sandy hourglass would make me think of the sand on the shore of the sea. I would think of flat shallows where my ship, my Andrew, has run aground with all its riches and flipped over, completely done. For if I went to church, he says, holy edifice of stone is the church, and see the stone construction, I would not be able to help thinking of the dangerous rocks that could break the sides of my ship and scatter valuable spices all over the waters. And those dangerous rocks can even scatter all my silks which are there in that ship. They are worth, and my ships which are worth so much till now, one crack in that ship will make those ships go wrecked, and ultimately my ships which are worth a lot till now will be worth nothing in no time. So that's basically what the friend is trying to actually pacify in saying that if I were to be in your shoes, Antonio, I can understand your reason for sadness is very, very genuine, because there are so many dangers which can be there in the sea, and ultimately my mind will always be thinking of the dangers which can confront my ship, which can harm my Andrew, my big rich argosy. Antonio actually puts all these presumptions to rest by saying, believe me, you're wrong. Believe me, no, I thank my fortune for it. My ventures are not in one bottom trusted, not to one place, nor is my whole estate upon the fortune of this present year. Therefore, my merchandise makes me not sad. So he says, believe me, sir, my ventures are not in one bottom trusted, means my whole business is not dependent on one ship. Okay, and not to one place. Even my whole business is not concentrated to one space or one place, that if something goes wrong with that place, if there's an earthquake in that place, that I'm going to be ruined. Nor is my whole estate or whatever I've earned is not dependent on my investment in the present financial year. Even if I get to suffer loss in this financial year, I can still bounce back into business with all the savings I've had. So he says, my merchandise, my business is not the reason for my sadness. So he puts to rest all these presumptions made by Salanio and Slereno, that there is no such thing which is causing me sadness. So Salanio says, then the only other reason which is viable reason is that you are in love. Why? Then you are in love. Well, then you must be in love. Antonio replies to that, Fi means shame, shame. You know, guys, when you touch the weakest vein of a person, the person is bound to actually react like that. If I tell you the ground reality, Antonio was in love with Bassanio. And Antonio had been made to understand by Bassanio that he has fallen in love with the rich heiress of Belmont, and probably he might be shifting to Belmont. So that was something which was there at the back of Antonio's mind. Antonio, who was not married, who was rich, and who loved Bassanio, was probably thinking that if Bassanio had to go away from his life, he will be left all alone. So probably that was the reason of his sadness. And when Salanio tries to say that you might be in love, and when he touched that angle of love, his love with Bassanio, Antonio reacted very sharply. He said, Fi. It means shame, shame, shame. Salanio says, not in love neither, then let us say you are sad because you're not merry, and it were as easy for you to laugh and leap and say you are merry because you're not sad. Now by two-headed Janus, nature hath framed strange fellows in her time, some that will evermore peep through their eyes and laugh like parrots at the bagpiper, and others of such vinegar aspect that they'll not show their teeth in a way of smile, though Nestor swear the jest be laughable. Salanio says, of course, we can presume that you are sad, okay, because you are not merry. Okay, and it would have been as easy for you to actually been jumping with joy if you had been happy. And if we had asked you as to why you're jumping with joy, you would have said that you're jumping with joy because you're not sad. So then he says, I can swear by two-headed Janus. The Janus is the god of doors. A door has two sides. Similarly, Salanio says that nature has framed two categories of people, two kinds of people. One who laugh a lot. Okay, they laugh through their eyes and they peep through their eyes because their eyes become very small when they're laughing. Okay, and laugh like parrots at a bagpiper. Now, parrot is supposed to be a foolish bird. Parrot has the capability, a parrot is a bird which has the capability of even laughing at the sound or the shrill cry of a bagpipe. So he says that there are such categories of people who laugh like anything at no reason. And then there is another category of people, that of those people who do not laugh at all. They will never show their teeth in the form of smile, though even if Nestor swears they just be laughable. Now, Nestor was a Greek general. It was believed about Nestor that Nestor would never smile. A joke had to be very, very amusing for Nestor to smile. So he said that there are certain such category of people who do not smile at all. So that's basically how the friends are trying to pacify Antonio. As the friends are trying to pacify Antonio and trying to find out the reason for his sadness, other friends like Bassanio, Lorenzo, and Graciano enter the scene. As I told you, Bassanio is the closest of the friends of Antonio. We talk about Lorenzo. Lorenzo is another friend of Antonio. And Graciano is a great talker. He talks a great deal of nonsense. Okay, you'll find out that this man talks a lot, and he talks, of course, talking a lot is one thing. The second thing is that he talks a great deal of nonsense. Okay, and he creates and he brings in humor with his speeches. Okay, here comes Bassanio, your most noble kinsmen, Graciano and Lorenzo. Fare ye well. We leave you now with better company. So these friends, Salanio and Salario, they say, here comes, Salarino says, here comes Bassanio, your most noble relative, along with Graciano and Lorenzo. Goodbye, we will leave you to these better friends. Salario says, now Salario is trying to actually pacify, Salario is trying to pacify, is trying to justify his going from there. He says, I would have stayed till I had made you merry if worthier friends had not prevented me. So he says to Antonio, if I weren't for these better friends coming along, if it weren't for these better friends coming along, I would have stayed until I had made you smile. Antonio says, as far as worthiness is concerned, your worth is very dear in my regard. I take it your own business calls on you and you embrace the occasion to depart. He says, I see you as worthy as any other friend. I will actually constitute from here that it's your own business, it's your own work which is calling you, that you are taking this as an opportunity to leave. To which Salario says to Bassanio, Lorenzo, Graciano, good morrow, my lords, good morning, my good lords. Bassanio says to Salario and Salanio, good signors both, when shall we laugh? Say when. You grow exceeding strange, must it be so? He says to Salario and Salanio, both of you are good men. When are you going to have fun times together? When are you going to have a get together with us together? Tell me when. You're practically becoming strangers now that you do not meet very often. It doesn't have to be that way. Salario promises we'll make our leisures to attend on yours. The next time we get a chance, we are going to spend some time together. Exeunt, Salario and Salanio. Now these two friends of Antonio leave the scene. Lorenzo speaks out. He says, my lord Bassanio, since you have found Antonio, we too will leave you. But at dinner time, I pray you have in mind where we must meet. My lord Bassanio, since you have found Antonio, the two of us will leave you two alone to yourself. But please remember as to where we are going to be meeting for dinner. Bassanio promises that he's not going to fail him. He says, I'll not fail you. Don't worry, I'm not going to fail you, and I'll let you know as to where we are going to be meeting. Graciano speaks to Antonio in the Meanwhile, he says, you look not well, Signor Antonio. You have too much respect upon the world. They lose it that do buy it with much care. Believe me, you are marvelously changed. He says to Antonio, you don't look good, Sir Antonio. You care too much about the worldly things. And those who care too much about the worldly things, they end up losing, becoming sad and losing out everything. And he says, believe me, sir, you are really not what you were earlier. You have changed marvelously. Antonio says, I hold the world, but as the world, Graciano, a stage where every man must play a part, and mine a sad one. So Antonio picks up this line from, of course, this line of Antonio is picked up from a poem The Seven Stages of a Man's Life, which is a poem written by William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare in this says, I value the world, and through Antonio is trying to say that I value the world as a world, and I consider this world to be a stage where every man must play a role. And he says, my role is the role of a sad human being. Graciano to that replies, let me play the fool with mirth and laughter, let old wrinkles come. He says, let me play the fool in your life, and I don't care if the laughter causes wrinkles. I would rather destroy my liver with wine than waste away with sad groans. And let my liver rather heat with wine than my heart cool with mortifying groans. Why should a man whose blood is warm within sit like a grandsire cut in alabaster? So he says, why should a person who is so active otherwise, why should a warm-blooded man like you be so cold and stoic as a statue of his dead grandfather? Why should you be inactive? Okay? Why should you sleep when he wakes and creep into jaundice by being peevish? Why should you practically be sleeping while awake and you start getting into jaundice for being cranky so much? He says, Antonio, let me tell you, I love thee, and it's my love that speaks. There are sort of men whose visages do cream and mantle like a standing pawn, and do a willful stillness entertain with purpose to be dressed in an opinion of wisdom, gravity, and profound conceit. So he says, Antonio, I know about certain such people. There are these categories of people whose faces are so unmoving that they grow scum-like like a still pond, and then they try hard to maintain a still expression on their faces, and they try to showcase their wisdom, their seriousness, and their profound conceit, their profound behavior, and they try to showcase as if I am Sir Oracle, and when I open my lips, let no dog bark. My Antonio, I do know of these that therefore only are reputed wise for saying nothing, when I'm very sure myself they should speak. When they would speak, they would almost damn those ears which hearing them would call their brothers fools. He says, Sir Antonio, there are these categories of people who consider themselves as the voice of God, as if they are Sir Oracles, the voice of God. And when they open lips, they try to showcase and project as if the other people should not speak because they only bark. He says, oh my Antonio, these kind of men only have the reputation of being wise because they say nothing. And I'm sure if they speak, everyone listening would realize they are fools. I'll tell you more about this another time. So he says, I'm going to end my exhortation some other time. Okay. But fish not with the melancholic bait, for this fool gudgeon, this opinion, come good Lorenzo, fare ye well a while, I'll end my exhortation after dinner. He says, do not fish, do not catch the fish of popularity by becoming sad. And then he says, come with me now, good Lorenzo. Goodbye for now, Antonio. I'll finish the rest of my encouraging speech after dinner. Lorenzo says, well, we will leave you then till dinner time. I must be one of these dumb men, wise men, for Graciano never lets me speak. Of course, everybody knows about how Graciano speaks a great deal of nonsense. He says, well, we'll leave you until dinner time, Antonio. Then I must be one of these dumb, wise men, seeming men he talks about, because Graciano never let any person speak. And Graciano is so proud of it. He says, well, keep me company but 2 years more. Thou shalt not know the sound of thine own tongue. He says, well, stick around with me for 2 more years and you'll forget what your voice even sounded like. Okay. Am I clear, children? Of course, this is with regard to these fellows trying to pacify Antonio. So Antonio replies to that. He says, farewell, I'll grow a talker for this gear. Means goodbye. I'll start to talk more now. Graciano says, thanks, in faith, for silence is only commendable in a neat's tongue tried and a maid not vendible. Thanks, because in fact the only tongues that should keep quiet are beef's tongues on the dinner table, he says, and those of uncooperative maids, he says, otherwise the tongues are not supposed to be silent. So Graciano takes pride in the fact that he talks a lot. Exeunt Graciano and Lorenzo, means they leave the scene. Antonio says, is that anything now? What do you think of all that? Does that make any sense? Bassanio also holds the same opinion. He says Gratiano speaks an infinite deal of nothing more than any man in all Venice. His reasons are as 2 grains of wheat hidden 2 bushels of chaff. You shall seek all day, you find them, and when you have them, they are not worth the search. He says Gratiano speaks an endless stream of nonsense more than any man in all Venice. Trying to find the point of what he's trying to talk would be like looking for 2 grains of wheat hidden in the bushel of chaff, of hay. You could look all day before you find them, and once you do, it's not even worth the effort you put into it. Antonio says, well, tell me now what lady is the same to whom you swore a secret pilgrimage that you today promised to tell me of. So they have spoken about Portia earlier. Antonio is confirming from Bassanio about Portia. He says, well, then tell me now who the lady is that you made an agreement with to go on a secret trip. You promised to tell me today about that lady. Bassanio starts speaking about that lady. He says, it's not unknown to you, Antonio, how much I have disabled mine estate by something showing a more swelling port than my faint means would grant continuance. Nor do I now make moan to abridge myself from such a noble rate, but my chief concern is to come fairly off from the great debts wherein my time, something too prodigal, hath left me caged. To you, Antonio, I owe the most in money and in love, and from your love I have a warranty to unburden all my plots and purposes, how to get clear of all the debts I owe. So he says, Antonio, you know how much I have been using up my wealth, living a more lavish life than I can afford. It's not that I'm complaining about that. It's not that I'm going to abridge myself from that noble rate. It's not that I'm going to incur less of the expenditure later on. It's not that, but I do care about fairly paying off all the debts that I've incurred till now while I was living beyond my means. I owe the most to you, Antonio, both in money and in love. And because we are good friends, I know I can tell you all my plans and plots for how I can pay back all my debts I owe. Antonio says, pray you, good Bassanio, and let me know. And if it stand as you yourself still do, within the eye of honor, be assured my purpose, my person, my extremest means lie all unlocked to your occasions. So Antonio confirms it. He says, please do tell me, good Bassanio, as to what your plans are. If your plans are as honorable as you are in my eyes, you can be rest assured that my money, myself, my people, my means of livelihood, they all are going to be at your disposal. Bassanio talks about his school days after this. He says, Antonio, in my school days when I had lost one shaft, I shot his fellow of the self-same flight, the self-same way, with more advised watch to find the other fourth, and by adventuring both, I often found both. I urge this childhood proof because what follows is pure innocence. I owe you much, and like a willful youth, that which I owe is lost. But if you please to shoot another arrow, that self way which you did shoot the first, I do not doubt, as I will watch the aim, or to find both, or bring you latter hazard back again, and thankfully rest debtor for the first. So he gives his childhood proof. He says, in my school days, when I used to shoot arrows once and lost one, I used to shoot another arrow in the same direction, the exact same way, and I used to pay better attention to that arrow this time, and this way I would actually my second arrow would land at the same place as my first arrow had landed, and I was able to actually get both the arrows. What he's trying to actually bring home with this example, childhood example, is that he is going to shoot another arrow of investment in this particular venture he's undertaking, and by borrowing money from Antonio, and he will be able to get the returns, not only to return the present debt which he'll be taking from Antonio and he has taken from the other people, but he'll also be able to pay back the previous debts which he has owed to Antonio and to the other people. He says, but if you shoot another arrow the same way as you shot the first one by lending me money again, I have no doubt that I'll bring forth both the arrows back to you by bringing back the returns, or at least I'll be able to bring back the first arrow or the first return and remain debtor to you for the second one. Antonio says, you know me well, and herein spend but time to wind about my love and circumstance, and out of doubt you do me now more wrong in making question of my uttermost, than if you had made waste of all I have. Then do but say to me what I should do, that in your knowledge may by me be done, and I am pressed unto it. Therefore speak. He says, you know me well, Bassanio, and you're wasting your time complicating my affection for you with explanation and reasoning. I do not need any explanation from you. I do not need any reasoning from you. If you had actually, you're doing me more wrong by explaining everything in detail than you would have done if you had wasted all the money which I had given you, if you had wasted all that money and had not brought that money back which I lent you. Simply tell me what has to be done, which you would like me to do, and I am willing to do that. I'm pressed on to doing it. I'll do it for sure. Tell me. Bassanio now introduces the heiress of Portia, whom he is in love with. He says, in Belmont there is a rich lady, a lady richly left, and she's fair and fairer than the word. She is more beautiful than the word beautiful itself, of wondrous virtues, means she's of a lot of qualities within her. Sometimes from her eyes I did receive fair speechless messages. They have fallen in love with each other. They have received speechless love messages from each other. Okay, that's how they claim to each other that they are in love with each other. And he speaks out the name of Portia. He says, her name is Portia, nothing undervalued than Cato's daughter, Brutus's Portia. So he refers to the times of Julius Caesar. When Julius Caesar was the Greek general, there was a friend of Julius Caesar by the name Brutus, whose wife was Portia, and she was considered to be one of the most beautiful ladies who had ever lived in Rome. She was the daughter of Cato, the Roman king. Okay, at that time it was believed that there is no one who could match the beauty of Portia, and he says, my Portia is no way undervalued or no way less than the Portia who existed during that time, nor is the wide world ignorant of her worth, for the four winds blow from every coast, renowned suitors, and her sunny locks hang on her temples like a golden fleece. So he compares Portia, his Portia. He says her worthiness is well known, and there are suitors who have come from far off, from the four corners of the world. Her blonde hair hangs on her temple like golden fleece, and it makes many a Jason want to come on a quest for her. Now let me tell you one of the biblical illusion. That illusion is related to Jason. Jason had gone to actually get the golden fleece, the fleece of a ram, the golden fleece of a ram, which was tied to an oak tree by a dragon. And Jason, with his wife Medea and his father Aeson, had gone on the Colchis Island, and he had defeated the dragon and had released the golden fleece from the clutches of the dragon. So here, all the Jasons are all the suitors who have come in quest of Portia. Portia is the golden fleece. The dragon is the lottery of caskets, which binds Portia, and Portia is going to get married to the person who is the winner of the lottery of caskets. And here, of course, Jason ultimately would be the Jason who would win the golden fleece, would be golden fleece by the name Portia, would be Bassanio. He says, Antonio, if I only had the means to stand as a rival with these suitors who have gone to Belmont to win Portia in the lottery of caskets. As I told you earlier, Portia was a rich heiress to the palace in Belmont, and her property was going to be given to her only on one condition: if she gets married to the person according to the wishes of her father, which were laid down through the lottery of caskets. The person who would pick the right lottery, the right casket, would get to win Portia. Okay, so that was the condition. Portia was bound in that kind of a condition by her father. Her will was pressed on by the will or the testament of her father, where he had left a written testament that my daughter will get to be the heiress to the property of mine if she gets to get married through the lottery of caskets. So he says, Antonio, if I only had the means to go and be one of those suitors, I know without a doubt that I would be successful in wooing Portia. Okay. To this Antonio says, Thou knowest that all my fortunes are at sea, neither have I money nor commodity to raise the present sum. Therefore go forth, try what my credit can in Venice do, that shall be racked even to the uttermost. So he says, you know this thing very well, Bassanio, that my fortunes are tied to the sea. My ships are actually abroad. I do not have the ready cash. All my cash actually is invested in the ships which are abroad, which are sailing far and wide. Okay, so I do not have the money. I do not have the means to raise the present sum. You want 3,000 ducats to go and be one of the suitors in the lottery of caskets in Belmont, but I do not have that much of sum with me. So what I'll tell you is to you can go and you can check in the entire Venice as to what my credit can do, my credibility can do. I am a noble man. People know me, people love me, and they are going to give you money in my name. Okay, that just go and find out as to how much money you can collect from the people around out of my name and my credibility, so that you can actually furnish yourself to Belmont to win fair Portia. Go presently inquire, and you so will I, where money is, and I no question make to have it of my trust of for my sake. He says, go ask around to find somewhere you can borrow some money, and so will I. And I'm certain that people will lend me money either for my own sake or for the sake of my business. Right? With this, he actually promises to help Bassanio, that he'll be able to lend that money to Bassanio so that he could go to Belmont to woo fair Portia in the lottery of caskets. With this, children, we get to the closure of the first scene of the first act of The Merchant of Venice. I am going to attach a worksheet with this particular scene. I would want you to go through that worksheet and try and answer the questions. And I'll be meeting you in one of the periods now, the next period. I would want you to please come and be ready with all the doubts you have with regard to The Merchant of Venice, Act 1, Scene 1. Till then, goodbye. Have a great day. Stay safe. God bless you all.